What's up YouTube? Jeff back again from DopeTechDaily.com. Today I'm bringing you guys my unboxing and review of the ZTE Blade Z Max on Metro PCS. Now I've had this phone for a little over a month. I've been using it. I used it for about 5 days solid, and then I had to take a break, came to the Note 8 for a little bit, and then I've come back to it for the last 3 or 4 days. I've been carrying it alongside the Note 8 as well. So throughout this review, you might notice that I make a comparison between these two phones, which are, I know, completely different. The ZTE Blade Z Max here is a $129 phone. The Note 8 starts at $930. However, I do want to point out some of the similarities, and this was one of the things I thought about when I started crafting this review, is that these two phones are similar in a lot of ways despite their huge price gulf. So first, let me talk about a few of the specs with this phone. Let me show you guys what's inside the box. You get pretty basic setup inside the box here. You get some documentation for the phone. You get a SIM tool, which, as you guys know, I've got 100 of those. You've got charging brick right here, and you do have USB Type-C enabled, so you've got a USB Type-C cable right there in the box. So this is Quick Charge 2.0 capable, so you can take advantage of that for quick charging with the Blade Z Max. That's everything. You don't get any additional accessories, which isn't too surprising in a phone like this. Some of the specs on the back, just to go through them real quick. It's got a 6-inch Full HD display, obviously Android, and that comes with Android 7.1 Nougat, which is great to see updated software. One of the most unique features, and one of the reasons I mentioned the Galaxy Note 8, is this is a $130 phone that has a dual camera. Now, yes, it's a 16 megapixel and 2 megapixel dual camera, so one of them much lower on the megapixels, but that does enable you to do some bokeh effects and also give you some portrait mode stuff. I'll talk about how that performs more in a second. 8 megapixel front-facing camera, 32 gigs of storage on the inside. You can put a micro SD card in there. I tested it up to 256 gigabytes, even though I think it only says up to 32 or 64, but I tested 256 in there, it works fine. 2 gigs of RAM, which is one of my biggest concerns with this particular phone because it really could use a bit more RAM. And you got a Snapdragon 435 rear-mounted fingerprint sensor right there on the back. So if we take a quick tour around the phone itself, a couple of things I want to note that are really nice about the build. This back material here has got a nice texture to it. You can see it there on a close-up of the camera as the light hits it. This is nice and textured. So if you sit this up on the top of your car, it's not going to go anywhere. If you sit it on a table, it's got a real matte sort of sticky back to it. That's really nice. Feels nice in hand. It's not going to be slippery. On the bottom, you got that rear speaker, which of course you would expect on a phone in this price point. Fingerprint sensor, which is very fast and reliable. I've had no issues using it on the back. And also, as I said, making comparisons to the Note 8, I highly prefer the location of this fingerprint sensor to the one on the Note 8. That's one thing the Note 8 really annoys me with. You've got your volume buttons right here, power button, which has some texture to it to differentiate it from the volume buttons themselves. Over here, you've got the aforementioned SIM slot, along with that micro SD tray, where you can insert up to 256. On the bottom, you do have a headphone jack, which is refreshing. Samsung thankfully also kept that on the Note 8, and you've got a USB-C connector. On the front, you do have that very nice 6-inch Full HD display. On the back, as I said, those dual cameras with an LED flash. Kind of a strange 16 megapixel, 2 megapixel setup. The display is very nice actually for a phone in this price category. It's got some nice vibrance and it's also got some nice brightness to it. You can see there on this nice background that they provided. Now obviously when it comes to the black levels, just as another comparison, you can see the huge difference between Samsung's blacks versus the one on this display. But again, note the price difference. But you can see that actually, if you look in comparison, I've got a black wallpaper that's got black on most of these. And you can see that the one on the ZTE Blade Z Max does have some pretty nice blacks for this price point. It does have nice viewing angles as well, nice visibility outside. Here in Arizona, it can be a little tough to see at times, but probably in most places in the world where you don't have such bright sun as we do here, and definitely indoors, it's perfectly fine. Like I said, the software on here, it is Android 7.1.1 out of the box, as you can see right there. Very nice. It's got the August security patch as well, so pretty up-to-date on the software side. Very close to stock, like the other ZTE phones I've reviewed, which I really like. If we go really quick in here, you can see that out of the box, you have approximately 20 gigs to use. I loaded a few apps on there. None of them were too big, though. You've got about 20 gigs to use. One thing that I did say is a problem, and I maintain that, is it would be really nice to have some additional memory on this particular phone. You can see that I was using 1.3 gigabytes of the 1.8 gigabytes that are available. And of course, by 1.8 gigabytes, they actually mean that you have 2 gigabytes total. Sometimes it just rounds it a little bit there. Otherwise, the software is very smooth. As long as you're not going to do any crazy multitasking or really heavy games, it can handle pretty much everything you throw at it. If you start adding in maybe 5 or more apps that you're switching back and forth and multitasking with, the 2 gigs of RAM will kind of give you the occasional hiccup, the occasional lag, which would be expected. I think if they had added 3 gigs of RAM, that would have made a big difference there. I played some games, Super Mario Run, One More Line, Pokemon Go. All of them ran fine. Again, those aren't really super graphic intensive games. And one of the things that's great for games like Pokemon Go, where it eats a lot of battery, is this phone, and it's not even that thick really if you look at it, has a 4080 milliamp hour battery. This thing can literally last 2 days with no issues at all. And so if you compare it to the Galaxy Note 8 in terms of its profile, let me take the Note 8 out of the case so you can see a side profile of the two phones. The phone really isn't that much thicker than the Galaxy Note 8. I mean, it's a little bit thicker for sure, but not that much thicker with that 4080 milliamp hour battery. It is taller and wider, of course, because the Note 8 has that super tall aspect ratio. So you are going to need 2 hands to hold on to this and navigate it. I would say in size, it's much closer to something like the Nexus 6, if you guys remember that Motorola made. This is definitely a whale of a phone. But otherwise, no real usability issues outside of the size. It's very smooth. The Snapdragon 435, like I said, not really appropriate for any high-end gaming, but if you're just doing social media, email, this phone's going to get along very well. The final thing is the camera. So I did test some of the bokeh features. I tested the main shooter, so took a few pictures with the main shooter, which actually is very nice, 16 megapixels. It gets good detail, and actually if you've got good lighting like this shot inside my office, you can catch some nice detail and get some good shots. This one I also took with the main camera right here, and you can see that we've also got some nice detail on this particular shot. It's a little bit dark because this one was actually inside of a room that wasn't as lit as well as before. This one I tested out the portrait mode and the bokeh mode to see if you would get nice edge detection. This one I believe I used the bokeh mode here, and you can see that the sides of the case on the Galaxy Note 8, the case down here, you can see it, the case gets completely obliterated into the background. So edge detection is a problem on the bokeh mode here and also with the portrait mode. That's kind of expected because, you know, even in Samsung's phone with the dual cameras here on the Note 8, the portrait mode does struggle with edge detection if you have really sharp corners. So I'm not surprised to see a phone, especially at this price category, have that issue with the software. There's also a black and white mode, so you can take some black and white photos. It doesn't have a true like monochrome sensor. It's just doing some software things, unlike with Huawei where they have that extra purely monochrome sensor. So overall, the 2 megapixels camera does allow you to do these bokeh, depth effects, but you can see again, pretty bad edge detection there in this particular photo. I took one on purpose that really shouldn't be done with the bokeh mode. But there's a lot of really cool stuff in the camera UI. You've got a lot of different modes. The dual cameras right here, you can switch between, like I said, the monochrome, bokeh, and portrait, which allows you to get some depth. You also have a manual mode inside here as well. You can switch over to and control things like the ISO, etc. You've got a time-lapse, multi-exposure, panorama mode, all those things at your disposal. You also have HDR right there at the top, which you can toggle on and off in a really nice way. There is no auto HDR, it's either on or off. And it does improve brightness a little bit and bring out some of that dynamic range that you see in background and outdoor shots. So overall, the camera's pretty good, especially at 130 bucks. I'd rate it near the top end of the cameras I've seen in the budget segment. The display is very good. If you can handle the extra large size, you get amazing battery life. You get a fingerprint sensor that's placed better than on a $930 phone, in my opinion, right there in the center. And you do get that cool dual camera feature, even though perhaps it's not the best quality when it comes to the actual edge detection to get the best quality photos, but you still get to play around with it on a phone in this price category. So as I've said about a lot of other ZTE phones, if you're on a budget and you just don't care about having the latest flagship, this is a great phone to consider if you're on Metro PCS. If you're buying it for your kids or you just want this as a backup to your flagship, also a great option all the way around. I definitely recommend it. All right, guys, so a huge shout out to ZTE for sending this out for review. Highly appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed my video, please like and subscribe so I can make future videos like this. I really appreciate guys checking it out. You can find me at dopetechdaily.com, Google+, Instagram, and Twitter. The link's in the description. I appreciate you guys checking it out, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching.